What's up, everyone? Back for another beer review, and today I'll be reviewing a beer from the Guinness Open Gate Brewery, and they're out of Baltimore, Maryland, and this is their old-fashioned inspired ale. So they're calling this one an ale, aged in Kentucky bourbon barrels with orange and cherry. It comes in at 10.8% alcohol by volume, and no IBUs listed. Time of review. This bottle is just over 2.5 months old, so it's been a couple of years since I've reviewed a beer from the relatively new Open Gate Brewery in Baltimore, Maryland. The first one I reviewed from them was their Imperial Stout Asian Bullet Bourbon Barrels, which I thought was pretty damn solid. Then the following year, I reviewed their barrel-aged, like old, what was it called? Like Old Stock Ale, which was like a blend of a old ale and Imperial Stout Asian Bourbon Barrels. Really, really good. Now, the last couple of years, they've released some different beers that I didn't get to review, like their barrel-aged gingerbread stout and their barrel-aged chocolate mint stout. I've heard mixed, reviews on both of those beers, but I saw this one recently and I was like, let's give it a go. Why not? So here we are. Now on the back here, they say, when you hear old-fashioned, certain flavors come to mind. Warming vanilla and oak, sweet cherry, and bright orange. We aged this cocktail-inspired beer in Kentucky bourbon barrels and then finished with orange and cherry. So they aged this one for 6 months in those Kentucky bourbon barrels, and then they finish it, they say, with sweet cherry and orange. They are purées they finish it with. At least that's what I read. I think it was on their website. Could have maybe been on Tapped or Instagram or something. I don't know, but it did say purées for both of them. So anyway, let's pour this into the glass and see what we got going on here. I'm kind of excited about this. Now, old fashions, it's not something a cocktail that I like regularly drink or anything, but I've had them before and I enjoy them. So I'm hoping that this, kind of produces a similar feeling to that, but in beer form at almost 11% alcohol. So I do know, I haven't seen anybody review this one or talk about it other than a very good friend of mine and fellow beer tuber, Jesse over at Bumpy Road Brews, and he was like, it's not too bad, but it's like not anything crazy. So we'll see if I kind of agree with him. Jesse and I agree a lot of times, but sometimes we don't. And that's the beauty of everyone having a different palate. So this pours out like this really deep kind of, like, we'll say like orange color, but there's like, it's like ruby red mahogany hues, kind of has like almost a copper kind of tone, or like a bronze. Yeah, I'd say like a bronze. I don't know how it's going to look on camera, but it has like a bronze kind of feel to it. The clarity is great. Just a little bit of carbonation. I think this has an etching in the bottom, but I could be wrong. Even if it doesn't, like, it is decent carbonation, but not crazy. Has about a half finger of this very lightly tan look to it. Like, the head's definitely not white. It's like an off-white into like a light tan. Yeah, I'd say like light tan. But yeah, there's alcohol legs. Not crazy, but definitely noticeable. Let's get a nose. It smells musty to me. Has a musty kind of aroma. It doesn't smell great. Wow. That's kind of disappointing, the nose. Holy shit. The thing is the first two, the aforementioned stout and bullet bourbon barrels, and then their stock ale or old stock ale or whatever it was called, I forget it, but it was like a barrel aged, like it was a barrel aged like blended beer, right, between like an old ale and an Imperial Stout Asian bourbon barrels, and I like those probably more than the general public. Like, I really enjoyed those ones. So I was hoping, like, hey, even if people don't enjoy this one, maybe it's something that I'll enjoy. The nose would indicate that I am not enjoying this. Yeah, I could see maybe orange and cherry, but like very subtle. It has a big malty character, but it smells like, what the fuck does it smell like? Doesn't smell great. It smells like you made an English barley wine or like an old ale, but there's absolutely zero hops balancing it out at all, like nothing. And I love malty beers, but this is like almost like cloying in the nose. Like almost like an under attenuated kind of beer, like where, I don't know, it doesn't smell great. It's a little bit of like a bourbon kind of thing, maybe a touch of vanilla. One more little swirl here. We'll get a nose, and if I can't get anything, we'll just get in the taste. Yeah, I'm not getting a whole lot. This is right out of my darker beer fridge, around 52. It's probably about 55 degrees, so it's not like, it being super cold and hiding the flavors. I don't know. Let's get into it. Cheers, everyone. Okay, taste is much better. Much, much better. Wow, that is scary drinkable at almost 11%. Like, I forgot for a second. I took that sip. I was like, holy shit, this is almost 11%, right? Wow, the nose, don't smell this beer. Or if you do, I'd love to hear what you think about it, because the nose was just like very dull and bland and kind of like almost off-putting. My nose was higher side of medium, lower side of full. It's a decent half. Is it almost 11% in terms of the body? Probably not. Maybe more like a 9 to 10% beer. It's fine though. It's a bit thin, but not a huge issue. The mouthfeel, it's definitely carbonated, moderate carbonation. Has a nice smoothness on the palate. Very easy to drink. The taste, it kind of replicates an old-fashioned to some degree, but it's not all the way there. Right at the tip of the tongue, I get sweet cherry. It's like a maraschino cherry, a cocktail cherry, but it's not super sweet. It's that flavor of that cherry. Then after that, I get like a little bit of like a zesty kind of orange feeling. It definitely is orange, or like you could say tangerine, zesty, pithy, not really overly sweet. And then right after that, I get caramel, toffee, like the base beer. And I feel like the base of this beer is probably like in the realm of like an old ale or like an English barley wine, something a little bit sweeter and maltier. But it's like caramel, it's toffee, maybe a touch of like a butterscotch. And that dives underneath the palate. And as it continues on, the barrel comes in. The barrel character in here is very minute. It's subtle. It's soft, in the actual flavors of this beer. But I get a little bit of vanilla, a little bit of oak. The bourbon spirit itself isn't present. I would say it's more of the barrel itself as opposed to the spirit. But yeah, vanilla and oak are there. And I get an oak tannin dryness. I've mentioned this so many times before, especially over the last 2, 3, 4 months when I review a barrel-aged beer. A lot of times oak tannins or perceived oak tannins in the taste sometimes do good for me, do extremely well, and sometimes they don't. A lot of times they'll break up the sweetness and kind of balance out the beer, but I don't actually like the tannin kind of feeling on my palate. This is like a moderate kind of oak tannin kind of dryness. Like this is semi to full-on dry because of the oak tannins, or what I think or perceive are the oak tannins. This is not overly bitter. This is very mildly bitter. So it's more dry than bitter, which I prefer. If I'm going to say you want to balance something else, with the sweetness, do you want something to be dry or bitter? I'd rather have the dryness. Because while it dries out your palate, you go back for a sip, you replenish, rinse and repeat. With the bitterness, a lot of times it just keeps on building. And then sometimes the bitterness starts dominating the palate and kind of could ruin a beer. That's not happening. And I'm drinking, look how easy I'm drinking that. I'm taking a lot of sips, taking this down, and it's not bad in the least. Does it taste exactly like an old-fashioned? Probably not. It doesn't. But is this a decent, solid, like kind of, again, old-fashioned inspired ale, like a beer, like an old-fashioned in beer form to some degree? I think I would like a little bit more, maybe of like the orange and cherry, because while they're noticeable at the forefront, they're not there. And I like a little bit more of the bourbon, obviously, the main component in an old-fashioned for the most part. The bourbon isn't there. It's more of the I think that's the biggest, difference between this and like an old-fashioned. The bourbon is actually not here. It's more for me the actual barrel of the bourbon, more so than the spirit itself. It hides it pretty well alcohol-wise. A little bit of a warming in the chest. Don't really taste on the palate. I would say like if I was doing this blind, like 9 to 10%. I wouldn't necessarily say 10.8. It's definitely a somewhat boozy beer, but not to that extent. So it hides it well. This is good. This is pretty fucking good, but if you like old fashions and you were like, oh man, that's Guinness and I would love to try that, you might be setting yourself up for disappointment. Now, again, as somebody who doesn't drink old fashions on the reg, maybe it does taste exactly like an old fashioned. I haven't had one in many years, but it could to some extent. So again, if you like old fashions and you've had one recently and then you picked up this beer, does it taste exactly like an old fashioned in beer form to you? Maybe it does. I don't know. But it's pretty good. So old-fashioned inspired ale from Guinness, their Open Gate Brewery in Baltimore, Maryland. I have absolutely no issues whatsoever giving this beer a, we'll go low 4 out of 5. We'll go 3.9 out of 5. I think that's where this one lands. It's not bad. The nose is horrendous to me, or definitely off-putting. The taste makes up for it. but it's still not an amazing beer. But I'm glad I picked this one up. I feel like if I ever see the barrel-aged chocolate mint one or the gingerbread one, I'll pick those up. I know a lot of people said they didn't like them, but we all have different palates and you never know what you're gonna like. I always say, don't write a beer off unless you've had it before, because you should try it before you know if you like it or not. If you rely on other people's palates, even if it's somebody who agrees with you the vast majority of the time, you never know when you're going to disagree. I have some good friends, even here in the beer tubing community, that I'll agree with their thoughts on a beer 90-95% of the time. But that means for every 100 beers they or myself drink, we'll differ on 5 to 10 of them. Maybe this is one of those 5 or 10. Price point availability, I don't know the availability. I just know here in the Buffalo, New York area, we typically see their seasonal releases like this. Outside of it, you just get like their El Dorado Amber Ale, which I don't even know if they actually brew that one anymore. But we get all their season, all the winter seasonals every single year, and this one showed up. Price point, this is $5.99 a bottle at the bottle shop I went to. I think 4 packs for like 22 or 23 bucks. Might be a little cheaper in your area, maybe like $20 a 4-pack. Would I pay $6 again to have this one? No. Was I fine with paying $6 to try this one? Yeah. This is a 12 fluid ounce. No, it's 11. So this is 11.2 fluid ounce bottle. So they're going the European route, and I'm okay with that. It's a fun beer to try. It's still less than $1 per ounce for like my max of this, and it's almost 11%. So if you've had this one before, post in the comment section. Let me know what you thought about it. Did it hide the alcohol relatively well? Does this taste like an old-fashioned to you? Is this one of your favorite within their barrel-aged series? Is there others you like? Is there one I should try? Post in the comment section. I love the back and forth. It's all about the interaction, and that's why I do these reviews. So appreciate everybody stopping by for another beer review here on the Beer Patrol. Till the next one. Cheers.